Lauren, can you hear me?
Hi.
1 second.
Okay.
Hello, Lauren, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Can.
It won't let me start my video. Is that
Yes, let me give you. There is a bug on Zoom, basically.
Oh,
So
no.
I need to start my video, and
Okay.
then I need to promote you to be a host. So now you're the host of this event,
Okay.
and then you could start your video.
Got it.
Sorry for the confusion. I'm just onboarding Sarah and Diego as well.
Okay, cool.
Okay, Sarah is here. Oh, now I can't promote Sarah. So I need you to go to Sarah's name and make her panelist. Only after you start your video.
Oh. Okay.
Hello. Or you can
Hi.
bring me back to the host, and then I will bring Sarah over. Whatever
Okay.
works for you.
How do I do that?
All right, so you have panelists and attendees, and right next to my name in the panelists, just go for more and then make host.
Gotcha.
Thank you so much. Hey, Sarah, what's up?
Hello.
Good to see you. Good to hear you, and
Yeah,
I'm going to see
and
you.
you'll see me shortly. Oh, it says I can't start my video because the host has stopped it.
All right, so hold on 1 second. I'll wait for Diego to show up, and then I will bring him here, and then I will make you host, and all of you could start your videos. Okay, you know what? I'll just do it right now. But after you start your video, just bring me back to be a host, if that's okay.
Step 1 complete, and then I wasn't listening before. How do I switch you back to the host? Oh wait, here we go.
Yeah.
Done.
Okay, and welcome everyone, by the way. I see there is like 20 people in the audience, so welcome. Super happy to have you. We will start in a few minutes. There were 211 people that signed up. I wonder how many.
Wow.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. And I wonder how many people will show up. We're 20 for now, which is cool.
Okay. Hey, Sarah.
Hi.
I see here familiar faces like Jedada Baker. So I know that.
I know him. Hey, Jed.
What's up? Okay, he can't speak, but he raised his hands. Hello. And in the meantime, everyone that just joined us, feel free to write here in the chat one thing that you want, that you would like to learn today. One thing that you expect from this evening or morning, depends where you are in the world right now. And as the moderator of this panel, I will make sure that we will address that thing that you want to learn. Let's see if Diego is here. All right. So we'll start in a few more minutes. Let's wait for everyone to join us.
I'm wondering if he had trouble. He may not have registered, which I didn't either till just now. So
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
hopefully he saw Sarah and I's responses. So
Hopefully too. I think that Talia sent him the link to the Zoom meeting, so hopefully
cool.
he'll join us, and we'll wait here patiently. But how are you? How is everything right now on your side of the world? Did you get vaccinated?
Yeah, it's a lot less complicated than it is on your side. So just sending good thoughts to you. Are you in Israel right now? Yeah.
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 Crazy times here in Israel for sure.
Yeah.
But I'm safe. Everything is okay.
Okay.
And I have a feeling that by tomorrow we're going to have some kind of a ceasefire and everything is going to be okay. I'm pretty sure.
Hope so.
Yeah. And that's about it. But we're COVID free, which is positive.
That's
Yeah, that's great news.
All right.
Yeah, you guys were ahead of us on that for sure.
That was cool.
So Diego just emailed, said he signed into Eventbrite, but it still says he doesn't have access to the event and to sign in with the email I used to register for the event. But I signed in.
No, he's here. He's here. 1 second. There you go. He's here. He found it. He found a way.
All
Diego
right,
found a way.
success.
All right. And I need to promote Diego to be a host right now so he could start his video. Okay, and in the meantime, everyone, first of all, if you can't hear me well or anything like that, make sure to say so. If you write anything in the chat, make sure to write to panelists and attendees so everyone could see. Hannah is saying greetings from Minneapolis. Thank you, Hannah. Greetings from Ramat Gan. And welcome, everyone. So first of all, write to panelists and attendees if you would like to chat here. And also feel free to ask questions. I'm going to be moderating this discussion today. And I want you to write one thing that you'd like to learn today. What's your expectation from this evening or morning? One thing that you would like to learn. Everyone that are here. Diego, I see that you're here too. How are you, Diego?
I'm doing good. How are you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm very happy to see all of you here and to have you and to have this panel of experts today about getting to the field of UX writing. So we're going to chat today about the motivations to get into the field, the process, the journey, and how is it like, and a little bit about the future, like what's your plans for the future and what would you like to achieve in your career. I've been aware to the amazing journey that all of you were doing in the past year also, and just looking from the side, it's just amazing to see like your progress, and that's amazing for me to see how successful you're becoming, and this is amazing. So welcome everyone, and today we have Lauren Reichman, Sarah Kessler, and Diego Kagara. Diego today works as a content strategist at Facebook. Sarah is a UX writer. Do you call it UX writer or content designer?
UX writer.
At Gympass, and Lauren is a senior content designer at PayPal. And today we have them for a panel, and I want to encourage all of you to write questions here in the Q&A if you have any questions for them. And we'll talk with them a little bit about their journey. So let's start with Lauren. So Lauren, what's your background is like, and how and when did you decide you're doing the transition to UX writing / content design?
Sure. Do you want the like 2-minute version or like the 6-minute version?
Let's go for the 3.5 minutes version.
Okay. First, I just want to say I love how Sarah, Diego, and I's like our job titles are all different, and they all kind of represent the strange job title. I wouldn't say strange, but just the difference that can happen. So you're seeing it in real time here. So for me, I've been a copywriter, a writer of sorts for almost 2 decades. And every time I say that, I age myself, but that's the truth. I started off as a traditional advertising copywriter. And then I would say for the majority of my career, for whatever reason, I've freelanced a lot. So that means I worked on many different types of clients. And the types of things that I was being requested to do, especially as, in the last 10, 15 years or so, in like the digital space kept expanding. So with that, kind of my skills and my interests sort of kept broadening. And because of that, I think, some of the things that I was doing wasn't as satisfying to me. So these are, were just like regular landing pages or website copy that I felt like I was just doing over and over again, just for a different client. And really the issue, I think, for me was not being able to see that impact in the world. So I was doing so many creative things and not really feeling like it had any impact beyond paying my rent, or at least not being able to see that impact. So I think like a few years ago, I kind of got hints of UX just while I was working at Capital One. And I'd done a bunch of, like brand guidelines before. So, and UX copy just within the realm of like copywriter. So I started to read up a bit and wasn't really sure what that meant, even after talking to people. So in 2019, I took a sabbatical. My wife works in academia and they get sabbaticals after their 4th year. So I tagged along and kind of like started reading up on stuff. And that's when I decided to take the UX writing hub course and kind of just, felt like it was the right time to figure out if this made sense for me. So I took the course, and as I began to understand what it meant more, realized that this is like was something that was going to be the right fit. So I think, is that a good place to stop?
Yeah, that's
okay.
Great. So about like the background and how you got into the field, and that's amazing. When was the first time you heard about UX writing, and when was your aha moment?
It was, so I would say it wasn't an aha moment. It was like a little whisper. And I wasn't sure until I took your course, maybe. And so that was, I think just, I heard about it when I was at Capital One. So this would have been like 2018 or so.
Got it. All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Sarah, how about you?
Hi. So, gosh, I don't know. I've had kind of a weird long career journey that didn't really relate to UX or UX writing in a lot of ways until kind of recently. So I went to school in college. I went and studied classical languages. So I did like Greek and Latin, and I was really interested in the way that language works. But then when I graduated, I was like, I want to be a bartender. So I did that for a little while. And then I worked in a chocolate factory because I needed a paycheck. And it sounds fun, but wasn't. And then I worked in an animal hospital doing like customer service. And after that, I got really soured on doing like in-person customer service stuff. It was like a lot of stress, to the point where like I just didn't want to get out of bed in the morning to go to work because I was just dreading going to my workplace. So from there, I moved on to a small digital media company based in New York, and they were like an animation production studio, and then they also made content for YouTube. And I was like, this place is going to be fun. And that was really my first job where I was like, you don't have to hate your job. Like, that's not a requirement. This is like, my mind is blown. And I really loved working with my team. And in that kind of, it wasn't really a startup, but it had kind of a startup mentality and a startup environment. And I loved it. But I was still doing like administrative work mainly. And then because of that kind of startup environment, I kept getting more and more different hats to wear. And they were like, oh, you know what? You're going to run our e-commerce store. You're also going to run HR for our company. You're going to be a children's book editor now. And I was kind of like, all right, I'm doing 100 things all at the same time, and I'm not focused on any single one of them. And I was at the point in my life where I was like, you know what? I'm a grown up and I kind of want to have like a more focused career. But what is that going to be? Kind of at the same time, I was also working on building websites for our company. So we had 3 websites that we needed to do. And they were like, guess what? Now you're a project manager. So I was kind of doing that and working with the web developers that I hired was really interesting. And I really liked the process of building those websites. So I was like, you know what? Maybe I need to be in tech. And how am I going to make that happen? So that started about 2 years ago. And it was kind of like piecemeal from there. Like, what I learned a little bit of how to code. I was like, maybe I want to be a project manager. Maybe I don't even know what else. I was like, maybe I want to be a developer. So I was kind of like learning little bits here and there. And each time I like got to a certain like plateau where I was like, this is really fun and interesting, but I think it was more because learning new things is fun and interesting. But it got to a point where I was like, you know what? I don't really want to be a developer. Like, I cannot sit in front of a computer all day, like writing in JavaScript. I'm gonna lose my mind. So, but I still had this idea where like tech is kind of the environment where I want to be. And one day I was like reading articles. I think I was looking into technical writing because I was like, maybe I could be a technical writer. I don't know. And I found out about UX writing, and I was just like, what is that? I never even heard of that. What does that even mean? And kind of reading like probably some Medium articles, I was like, that sounds kind of interesting. And I found out that a friend of mine is a UX writer, and we had lunch, and I was kind of like, tell me everything. What is a UX writer? What do you do? And it just was like, yeah, I want to do that. That all sounds really awesome. So for a little while, I was like, you know what, let me figure out like what I actually already knew and what do I need to learn. So that was like a big process. And I did have this like customer service background. I knew about language. I can write. I wouldn't consider myself a writer, but it's something that I can do. So all of these things were kind of like, you know, tools in the toolbox that I was like putting into into like a portfolio or a resume or whatever to like try to sell myself as a UX writer. And I kind of struggled with that for about a year before I was like, you know what, like, I know I can do it, but I'm having this feeling like the kid in the 80s like sports movie who's like the nerdy kid who's like, put me in, coach, like I'm good, I swear. But nobody was going to give me a chance because I didn't have anything like with a job title of copywriter or UX or anything that seemed really related. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna need to quit my job and do a full-time UX boot camp. Like, I'm gonna make this happen. And I was fully prepared to do that. And in January of 2020, I gave notice at my job. I talked to my boss. I was like, you know what, in a few months, I need to save up money, but I'm going to do this and I'm going to go do a UX design boot camp. And he was really supportive. And then COVID happened. And it's been terrible in many, many ways. But for me personally, it's worked out extremely well because I ended up not leaving my job at that time. I ended up not doing a super expensive UX design bootcamp, which wasn't even really what I wanted to do. But I just had not found really any like UX writing specific coursework. And I kind of wanted to do something in person too. But then COVID happened. It was like nobody's doing anything in person. And I'm definitely not going to do like a $15,000 boot camp that's just like online for something that's only kind of related to what I wanted to be doing. And that's when I found out about the UX Writing Hub Academy. And it was like, this is the time when I'm going to need to do this. And it's like the perfect format. Like I'm going to be able to do it while I'm still at work. And I can just incorporate it into my quarantine life. And it just kind of worked out really nicely for me. So I would say a big part of it was just like luck and circumstances.
Amazing. It just reminded me that the course of 2020 was like during COVID, and
Yeah,
just reminded me how weird it was in the beginning, because that was also our first cohort during COVID, and like how the world changes from quarantine to quarantine, and meeting with the students during that time. That was intense and interesting and weird, and looking back, it was a unique experience, I assume.
for sure. It was definitely a weird time, but I think a very positive one in the course.
All right, thanks for sharing. Fascinating story. And we're going to go and dive more about the story afterwards. But Diego, what about you? How did you start it, and how did you decide to get into this field?
All right. Well, I just want to say, first of all, it's 6 a.m. here. So I apologize if my voice is not 100%. And also that it's a bit surreal for me to be here because I was literally on, the people who are watching this panel, I was on at your position literally last year, attending events like this, networking with people in the field. It's kind of weird being a panelist when you've all asked me to come here. But you've all said I am a content strategist at Facebook, and I work in San Francisco. I just started in March actually, so I'm still kind of new over there. And in terms of like how I knew about UX, I come from a journalism and copywriting background. So I've always worked at like newspapers, online publications, and even an advertising agency for about 4 to 5 years now. And I always thought that I had a passion for journalism. And my dream was to work as a magazine editor in New York City, no matter how corny and cheesy that is from like a 2000s rom-com movie. But basically by 2019, I essentially realized that journalism wasn't a sustainable career field because there wasn't really a strong future there. The compensation was really bad. They kept expecting you to work on so many things, but still treat you like you're always like needed over there. So sadly, by 2019, my passion for journalism died. But then I actually realized that I had a passion for writing all along instead. So it was a little bit of a different story. And at the time, I was working at a small town newspaper. So I had a very old desk that I think it came from like the 1970s. I had really bad pay. I was told to work on so many things. And eventually they got me covering local politics, which is really what I did not want to do. I really hated politics. I didn't want to get into like the scandals, the shady business that everybody was going through there. So it really contributed a lot to the downfall of journalism for me. And I think the last show was that I was made aware that my fellow colleague who has the same job title as me, and he was in his 50s, he was being paid the same rate as me. And I was like over 30 years junior of him. And I had a moment I sat there at my 1970s desk and I thought, I think I need to do something bigger than this. And I don't feel like I belong here. So around summer 2019, I have a brother he was interning at Google in YouTube actually as a rising UX designer, and he was in San Francisco that summer. And at the time, I was living in upstate New York with my family, and so we decided to like go fly and visit him for a long weekend. And we were given a tour of the Google campus. And I half jokingly asked my brother, are there any writing related jobs in tech companies here? And at the time, I only knew of writing jobs like public relations or communications. But then my brother said, oh, there's this thing called UX writing. And that was literally the first time that I first heard about UX writing. I never heard of it in college or from anybody else. And he began explaining to me a bit about what it was, but he wasn't really 100% sure about it because he was a UX designer, like I said. And UX writing is a bit of a different field. And as we continued our tour of the Google campus, we actually ran into his boss, who actually was a journalist before becoming a UX writer at Google. So right there and there, I kind of saw like, oh, this could be my future right here. Like, wow. And so right then and there, I first heard of UX writing and I had my first networking experience in this field within like 10 minutes. And in terms of career transitions, after flying back to New York, I began doing more research about UX writing, learning that journalism and UX writing shares a lot of similar skill sets, like writing to an audience, writing concise copy, information hierarchy and all that. And around this time, I started networking with people in the business on LinkedIn. And that's when I came into contact with Yuval. And I'll never forget our conversation. It was crazy because I was very young. I was, kind of hopeful, but also a bit like doubting whether I could make it. And Yuval, he was very encouraging. He was very persuasive. And that's how I eventually got into his UX writing course, which I guess I can talk about later. Right. And similar to Sarah's story, COVID-19 also impacted my career transition. I can talk about that later on because it's a whole different story. But that's basically the gist of how I learned about UX writing and got into it.
Amazing. I remember that there was like a while between the first conversation we had when I think I was in like Berlin back in 2019 to the time that you actually joined the course. And I remember like how happy I was to have you after all of the discussions that we had prior to the program.
Right. Yeah, you were very encouraging and very persuasive. Because I had a lot of questions about the industry at the time. I didn't know, and also I also didn't know who you were. So I'm like, who is this guy like talking to me and like being encouraging? But then again, I got more comfortable about it. You were telling me about your course, and you were telling me about the field. And it became one of those fateful conversations that like really changed my life. So, and now I'm here 2 years later.
Right.
So yeah.
That's amazing. I'm so excited and I'm thrilled to have you in this position right now. And I didn't have any doubt that you're going to reach there. And come on, you're still very young. Are you kidding me? Like you're saying I was very young, but you're still very young. You're like the all career is in front of you.
I think because of COVID, we all lost our age. We lost sense of time. So pardon me.
All right. So all of your stories kind of were about like deciding to doing the transition, then taking the UX Writing Academy program. And so I would love to know like what exactly happened in that program. Sarah, for example, what did you learn and what was the processes like and what did you get by the end of it?
Sure. So I had already done a bunch of like UX design courses through Udemy. And so I had already kind of a fundamental understanding of like what is UX and like what is going to be the purpose of UX writing. But and I'd been doing some freelance work on Fiverr, but it was like it's not something that I recommend to anybody to do. But so I already had like a little bit of experience with it, but what I really was lacking was like testing any kind of like data driven decision making, and I really needed to work on my portfolio. So when I went into the course, I was really hoping that it would focus on these things like what is A/B testing and how do you do an A/B test, and like what is like how do I do a user interview and when do I do a user interview. And I would say that that is definitely a big focus of the course and something that really, really helped me. And probably the other thing that was like the most helpful was I met with you, Yuval, and you did a portfolio review on my website, and that was just like so incredibly helpful because I had gotten feedback from friends and people were trying to help me, but like having somebody who's like in the industry look at it and say like, oh, well, did you think about this? And maybe you could change that, or it would be, you know, a little bit more useful to say it this way. Like that was just so helpful. And ultimately, I think that that's like what got me into jobs. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. It's part of the program, of course.
Yep.
we are, the next question afterwards, I'm going to ask like how exactly, and I see that people asked it here too, how you landed the first job. So we're going to talk about it afterwards. And I'd love to ask Lauren, so about from the minute you decided to go into UX writing and to take the UX writing academy program, what happened over there? What was being like the game changer, and how did it help?
Yeah, so I think for me, as I said, like I've been a digital copywriter for a long time, and there was a lot of crossover things that I did. So I really needed to understand, okay, well, what is UX? How is UX different? What are like the principles of UX writing? So, you know, previously I write based on, I've always written based on like what is strategy and trying to be clever. So like kind of what are those nuances that really makes being a UX writer different. So I think overall, like what the course gave me was context, and with that, the confidence I needed to know like, you know, what are the things that I know is right and what do I need to learn, and what is, you know, UX writing, as I said, like encompass. So like the as Sarah mentioned, like the testing, A/B testing, that kind of like research, how to do competitive research. Also, like I don't think I'd ever really looked at Medium before, so being introduced to that, I think Yuval is big on Medium, and you know, from that is just kind of an endless stream of learning, and you know, from all the articles that you read, you can begin to paint a picture of what UX is and who to follow, and then I think also like what books to read. So you know, it really helped for me. I don't think I'm not the type of learner that can learn without a like container. So having a course and having, you know, cohorts and learning in that like very contained way is like the best way for me to learn. And yeah, I was also, I took the course January 2020. I think I think Diego and I were in the same class, and which was also during, you know, COVID started like soon after. So it was kind of awesome to have something to really dive into. But yeah, I think really like at the end of it, it was the context, and then with that, the confidence.
Thank you. And I will say that it's really important to say that if you want to get into the field, so doing this course or that course is not necessarily what's going to take you there. Okay, it's not about the courses that you take. It's about the mindset that you have, the motivations that you have. You can Google and find many of the free resources that is out there in our blog and Medium. There's a lot of great content, but a lot of great people out there. So even if you're kind of thinking or considering going into this field, there's a lot of other commitments that I recommend you to do before even taking a class like that. And even a class like that is not necessarily what's going to get you into this field. It will help. It can help, but it definitely depends on like what's the kind of mindset that you're coming into this class or into this field, and how motivated are you to do that, because all of the people here in the panel will say it's not going to be easy to do this transition. It's going to be challenging. You're going to invest a lot of efforts in order to do that, and I had to say that too. So thank you, Lauren. How about you, Diego? So since you decided to do the transition since we first talk until you like what happened in the UX Writing Academy in the program that helped you?
So going back to fall 2019, like right after I flew back from that San Francisco trip, I eventually took a UX course called the UX Writers Collective Fundamentals course. So that was like a whole different course where it was just a nice little introduction about UX writing, getting to know the vocabulary and the lingo that UX writers use. And then we also worked on a little final project that's good to show in your portfolio eventually. And then during this time, as I said, I was like talking with you, Yuval, about your course and learning more about the field of networking. And eventually, I decided to take the leap and take your course. And so I took your course in early 2020. And like Lauren said, yeah, we were virtual classmates over there. And I remember that COVID started during then. I'll never forget. But for the course specifically, I remember that we learned so much about UX writing on a weekly class basis, and that our so-called classmates are from all around the world. I think some people were from India, some were from Germany. They were like all over the world, which I really loved. So I love that sense of like collaboration and international diversity among us. And we also did a lot of like mini projects, and we also worked on a final project with a real nonprofit organization where we improved their website in terms of copy and design together. And I remember loving it because it was so structured, and the mentors were always there to help. And so it kind of felt like going back to college again in a way, just learning more things, and like a teacher will be there to help you. And I remember when COVID first hit, I was a bit nervous about how the course would be impacted by that. But Yuval and his team were very, very flexible, and they kept the course going, and it largely remained intact anyway. And what I loved the most was like this course taught me the importance of UX research. We did so much UX research, like competitive analysis, conversation mining, and all that good stuff to help us fuel our UX writing process in our projects. And lastly, the one-on-one mentorship was really beneficial for me, because sometimes I would have certain questions, or I would kind of still feel like, is this like a good way to get into the field? Like, I started like doubting myself at certain points. But Yuval and the mentors were always there to be encouraging, and giving me a lot more context about the field and whatnot, and helping me with questions. So this course really gave me the boost I needed to confidently try to go into the field. Yeah.
Amazing. And you start talking about the projects with the nonprofit. I believe you worked on Reboot and Recover, you and Lauren, right?
Yeah.
So what was that like? Like the Reboot and Recover?
Yeah, so Reboot and Recover, if I recall, it was this nonprofit that wanted to offer resources for people struggling with screen addiction. So I remember that we did a lot of UX research about what screen addiction was. We interviewed a couple health professionals about, what screen addiction really is. How can we improve that company's website? Because the website, I remember, it was like a hot mess. There was too much copy everywhere. The design was confusing. They were using like repetitive words, so it really lacked focus, and like we didn't know what the website was about when we first landed on the page, which is like the whole basis of UX basically. So I remember that as a team we began distributing like tasks to one another. So like some people will do research, some people will work on design, some people will do on the style guide and whatnot. And I really loved that whole highly collaborative process with everybody. And Lauren got to be a part of that as well, which I loved. And that's really what I remember most from the final project. Yeah.
I remember Lauren was working on this user journey, amazing, like highly detailed document on Whimsical. That was amazing with Angela, right?
That wasn't me.
Oh, really?
That was, I think that was
Angela?
after. Yeah. But so I did I started doing mock-ups in Figma. So I did kind of, after that was done, kind of taking all of our research and user journey and putting it into like wireframes and sort of to start to organize based on information hierarchy. So that's kind of what I did.
Amazing. And how did you learn to do this wireframing thing? And like, was it important part of the process?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I'm very visual. So if I'm thinking something, I need to kind of sketch it out. So I mean, that's really what I did on Figma, was just kind of create boxes and say like what content went where. So yeah, it was very lo-fi, just sort of like organizing the information. So.
Cool.
And I
Thank you.
think also I remember with your help, like just, learning stuff from Figma, like you can take a screenshot from, like I took a screenshot from their website and you can just like bring it into Figma. So then it was really cool to take kind of like pieces of their website that was already there, and then you could sort of place that into your new design. So that was kind of fun. I remember that.
Yeah, taking like the screenshot and just changing the text. I also did today with Miro, just like they have the screen capture, just put the URL and automatically just drop the screenshot over there, then you can modify it. Very cool. And Sarah, you were working on localized city project, right?
Yep.
So how was that like?
So localized city, for anyone who doesn't know, is like it's supposed to be like a hyper local real estate finder app. And so you would, I think they're operating out of New York and Chicago right now. And so we were helping we were working directly with their UX writer. And she wanted help doing a content audit, specific, like it's a huge product. So we weren't able to do like a complete content audit, but we reviewed what I think it was called like the truth you should know. So they have these like special insights for people who are looking for a home or an apartment that maybe the broker wouldn't tell you or doesn't know, like this building has had like 12 elevator complaints in the last year, or like it has so many, pest complaints, or even just like it's in walking distance to, Trader Joe's or something like that. So we did a full review of like all of those different metrics that they would share with users, and made some suggestions for how they could make it more user-friendly and more consistent and succinct. So that was really fun. I think other people on the team, we kind of split it up. So other people were working on doing like user personas. I did competitor research. So I looked at like Redfin and Trulia and Zillow and stuff like that. And like, what else did we do? I don't know. I feel like we worked on it for so long, and now I'm like, what did we do? Yeah, I think one thing I didn't mention before about the course was learning to use Airtable. You all should be on the Airtable payroll. I was definitely not a believer in Airtable when you first told us about it. And I was like, why would I do this when I have Google Sheets? And then I used Airtable for 10 minutes and I said, this is why you would use Airtable instead of Google Sheets. And now it's definitely my preferred platform for organizing information, as long as it's not like, math, even though you could do math in Airtable if you wanted. And I used it at my last job pretty extensively, and I use it for personal use too. And I love Airtable now, so everybody should get on board the Airtable train.
I would say same, and you've all told me as well. So there's 2 customers right there.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll reach out to Airtable. Maybe they could hire me or something like that. Hire the UX Writing Hub. Very cool. We just built a bot using Airtable right now, like some kind of there's a tool named Introgomat. Have you heard about it before? It's like an automation tool, and you can connect it to all of your, databases that you're building on Airtable, and then you could do all kinds of crazy stuff. We can talk about it afterwards. Amazing. So thank you for sharing a lot of great insights. I also learned from it, like what was good about the program, like the portfolio sessions, the international collaboration. That's pretty solid point. Research, doing Airtable, that's amazing. And also the projects part. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, so we talked the program. You went into the big world right now, and you had to land your first job. So what's the process to land that job? How did you land your first UX writing project? Basically, how did you land the role that you are at today? Lowen.
It was tough. I feel like I had a lot of close calls early on, and people say you just need one yes, and sometimes that takes a really long time, especially with such a competitive field. You're interviewing for a role that many other really good candidates are interviewing for as well, and I feel like it's such a kind of exciting new field, and so breaking in was hard. Definitely, I as a copywriter, I would get asked, well, have you worked with engineers? Have you worked with developers? And I try to position myself well because to me, I mean, yes, I've worked with designers for, my whole copywriting career, some developers, and, they also ask about project managers, and it's kind of all the same thing, but it's hard to say that, like, as Sarah, you said before, like, you can do that, you could do it, but how do you, convince other people to give you that shot? So basically, it was tough. Interviewed a lot, did many content exercises, spent a lot of hours. They'll tell you, I think legally they can't say to spend that you can, they say legally they can say, please spend 3 hours on this, but don't believe that. You need to spend as much as it takes to do the exercise well. And that can take 20 hours, depending. So basically what happened and how I got this job that I am just in the second week of is I finally got so for one thing, I redid my portfolio, positioned it in a way that set me up more for UX writing roles. So kind of redesigned my whole portfolio. And then the other thing is, if you guys are not on Content Plus UX Slack group, definitely get on that. I think you just go to the website and request to join. There's a ton of, you kind of get like first dibs on jobs, but there's also like a freelance channel. So, and I also connected with a couple headhunters. So I think, you know, after a while, my thing was like, okay, maybe I can get a freelance gig and use that as a jumping off point. So November of 2020, I actually got offered. So after like not getting jobs for, I started in June of 2020, didn't get anything. And then in November, I got offered 2 at the same time. And one was from a headhunter and one was from content and UX. I emailed someone about a freelance gig that was part-time. And at the same time, I also got this a role at Experian for conversation designer. And I didn't, and the first one was at H&R Block. And I kind of felt like both of those experiences would be awesome, and one paid a lot more than the other. So I didn't really want to accept the conversation designer job without the H&R Block job, because that one didn't pay enough. But, you know, I thought, well, conversation design is a great thing to learn and have on your resume. And that was an official UX writer role position. So I took them both, and I was working 12-hour days. And they were both supposed to be for 3 months. So I was like, I can do this for 3 months. I haven't worked in like a year and a half because I did the sabbatical and then the course. And then they both extended my contracts, which was great. And also, I don't know. I was tired at that point, but I was like, just keep on going for a little bit. And I started to lose a lot of steam beginning of April. And so I was going to quit one of them. And because also during this time when I'm like working 12-hour days, I was also interviewing. And so to do these content exercises or to do presentations, then I was working on the weekend. So it just kind of became too much. And then the PayPal thing happened. Someone I talked to from my past had posted a job on LinkedIn. It was a contract job. I spoke to her. I didn't think it was the right fit. And then she actually tagged me in, someone from PayPal posted that they had jobs. She tagged me in that post, and I connected with her, and then went through the, you know, content design presentation exercise. And so I got that job, and I was able to then quit the other 2 jobs, which were amazing experiences. But the important thing is those 2 jobs, my presentation, I had, my one project was from H&R Block, and the other project I presented was the Experian, the conversation design, writing a chatbot. So both of those 2 jobs helped me get this full-time gig. So yeah, I would say just like, you know, take it one step at a time. Get whatever job you can that puts something on your resume, and keep going. It took a lot of grit that I didn't know I had. So I'll just say that.
Very cool. And by the way, what's one of the most impressive thing about your story is that you're right now in a senior position, right? Not in a junior position. This is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
To go, and of course, you know, it's probably because you have such a vast experience as a writer already, but I think that not everyone could do something like that. So that's pretty cool.
Thanks.
All right. And Sarah, how about you? How did you land your work at Gympass? Which, by the way, you can explain more about Gympass, but
Yeah,
it's like
sure.
this huge unicorn company.
So before I get to Gympass, after the course, which finished in like October-ish of 2020, I, just like Lauren, I redid my whole portfolio. I think I've redone it at least twice since then. And And I really like tried to optimize it to show like what I could do. And using especially that real project from Localize was really important because it was like, look, this is a real thing I did. And like it's at a real company. So it was like, it was almost like having a job. And I was just applying for every UX writing job I could find on LinkedIn and wherever else. And just wasn't really hearing anything back. And that had been kind of the trend since I started applying for UX writing jobs like in 2019, and just not hearing anything back. And then all of a sudden in December, I got 2 jobs at the same time. So the same thing. And I was still actually working for my old boss. Like he started a new company and I went with him. So we were kind of starting up this new animation production company. And I was just really lucky to be working with him because he's so supportive and was just like really really helpful and just let me like do what I needed to do for him, but spend most of my day working on other things. So I had this really nice like safety net with a paycheck. It wasn't the paycheck that I would like to have, but you know, it was better than having to deal with the unemployment office. So I was working on that, applying for jobs. Finally in December, I got an offer from a company called Zenus. They do like a bed in a box and flat pack furniture. And they are still actually working on it right now. They're doing a full website redesign and then also creating new websites for their global markets that don't have websites yet. So they hired me to work on that. And I just also like Lauren, it was supposed to be like a 2-month contract. And I was like, I could have 2 jobs for 2 months, no problem. And the next day I also got, oh no, it was the day before I got the offer from Zenus. I had started volunteering as a UX writer with an organization called Helping Hands Community. And that was something that I got through a classmate at the UX Writing Academy, because she had been working with them and then had to leave because she got a job. And so she recommended me to them. And right before I got like a paying job, I was like, sure, I can volunteer. That's like 15 hours a week volunteering for this great organization. They're focused on serving people who are at the crossroads for risk for COVID and food insecurity. So they help people. What they're really doing now is like they're helping food banks make deliveries to people who are homebound because of COVID or for other reasons. And I will post a link to Helping Hands in a minute. But yeah, so I was working with them, then I was working on Zenus, and I had this other job. So I had kind of 3 jobs at the same time. And then after the 2 months was over, I was like, great, now I'm going to do something else. But they were like, no, we still need you. So they extended my contract. And then also right at the same time, the company that I was starting up in animation production got announced. So we were really like busy. And I was also working like 12+ hour days. And also I have a child. And so it was just like, everything was crazy. But I was like, I have to do it. I have to do it. And I would say my advice to everybody else is you do not need to have 2 or 3 jobs at a time to get started in UX writing or anything else. And it's probably not even a good idea to do it that way. And I kind of regret it. Even though ultimately that path led me to GymPass, where I am now, where I actually just started there 2.5 weeks ago. So it feels a little bit weird to be at a panel representing myself as the UX writer at GymPass because, you know, I'm still like a total noob. But yeah, I had actually applied to that job at the same time that I applied for the other job that I was already working at, and they just took forever to get back to me. So another thing I would say to people is like, do not lose hope. Companies will take forever to respond to you. Sometimes they won't respond to you at all, but like, try not to take it personally. Like, just move on with your life as though things are fine, and eventually they will be. So anyway, so I got the job at Gympass, ultimately also through that same case study from Localize. Although there was many rounds of interviews, I had to do like a take-home challenge, so I think that was a big help too. And yeah, now here I am. And Gympass is a great company. I think actually we might be looking for another UX writer sometime soon, probably based in maybe Brazil or somewhere in Europe. So that's something to keep in mind, but I don't know for sure yet.
Very cool. And it's really important to say, like, all of you are working in those big companies, and it feels like the larger the company, the longer the process is to get in. It's like you have those long processes. It might be, I know it might be shorter, but I know that it might take a few months, and that's okay. And as you said, you shouldn't lose hope and keep pushing.
Especially right now, it's like it's COVID times, everything's crazy. A lot of places, like, they think they need to hire somebody, but then the funding got frozen for a little while, or whatever happened, like they couldn't do the hiring, so they had to pause it. So like it could still happen.
Thank you. All right, we'll do some more questions, but before that, Diego, I would love it if you will tell us how did you land that job at Facebook?
Wow. So yeah, the course ended in May 2020, and right after that, life became very challenging. I think it was perhaps one of the most trying times in my life, because I was always up, updating my portfolio, applying for as many jobs as I could, with the limited UX experience that I had, and getting ghosted by many recruiters, and also getting portfolio advice while networking with UX people in the field. So that's a lot, and it can take a bit of toll on you. And mind you, this is 2020, in summer 2020. So, the Black Lives Matter movement was going on and COVID was still raging. So it was a really crazy time. And I remember that I decided to finally quit my newspaper job in June last year. Because I remember my boss was saying, oh, Diego, next month you're going to be covering this election. Next month you're going to be covering, like this political event. I'm like, here's my 2-week notice. And I quit my job without another job in line, actually, which is, I don't recommend doing that to any of you guys listening over here. Don't do that, really. For me, it was just a stroke of luck of how everything happened afterwards. And I'd also been thinking about moving from upstate New York, from a small town, to San Francisco, because I always wanted to live in a big city. And I knew there were a lot of UX jobs in San Francisco. So, quitting my job without having another one lined up, and then moving across the country with no job yet, and then having to pay the expensive monthly rent, it was really the biggest risk I think I ever took in my life. And believe it or not, after 4 months of being unemployed and constantly applying for jobs, and my savings account was starting to like dip and dip and dip. Right before my birthday, I got an email about a freelance copywriting job. And within 24 hours of talking to the people, I got the job. This is a short-term contract copywriting job at a big advertising agency that's based in Chicago. So I was, because I'm living in California, I would work remotely for this job. And this contract was just for 2 months. I remember thinking that, I wasn't getting any interviews at any other places at the time. And it was right before my birthday. So I figured it was a sign, and I just took it and ran with it. And I'll never forget that I was lining up at a bubble tea place. And then I was about to order a small drink. Then I got the email that I got hired while I was in line. And then I ordered a big drink. So I'll never forget that. So after 2 to 3 months of this contract job, they let me go. And my interview process for Facebook was very, very unusual. It was very short. So as I said, I just finished my contract job in January of this year. And around that time, a recruiter reached out to me on LinkedIn about a content strategist role on Facebook. And then for some reason, several weeks later, I found out that I was in the top 3 in the running for the position. And I was like, really? I have limited experience, but okay, well, I'll talk to whoever I can. And I ended up landing a phone interview in February. And it was just like, it was actually a very casual phone interview. It was a 1 hour phone interview. The lady who would become my manager, actually, she was just asking me about my background, what I did before. And I did some research and I found out that she came from a journalism background as well. So that's a very good pro tip for everybody, that to always do research on who will be interviewing you. And I remember doing the phone interview, I took the risk and I asked her, what inspired you to switch careers from journalism to content strategy at Facebook? What inspired you to do that? And she actually was very surprised and heartwarmed by that question. I think it felt genuine to her that I wanted to listen to her story, and I think that really helped me as an applicant. And I also was interested in learning how she did it, because at that point I was kind of giving up. And I was like, girl, just tell me how you did it and I'll just do it already. And actually, and the day after that phone interview at Facebook, the Chicago people got back to me and they said, Diego, we'd like to bring you back for an extra month for a short-term contract. Would you be interested? And we need to know within 24 hours of your decision. So I went into panic mode for a little bit, and I quickly messaged the recruiter at Facebook, and I asked, I have another company who is interested in taking me. May I ask where I stand with Facebook, because Facebook is still my top priority. And I kid you not, literally within 10 minutes, that recruiter went to her manager and she got back to me and said that Facebook was extending me an offer, right then and there. Because they didn't want to lose me, apparently. And apparently I did a great first impression in that one phone interview. And I remember the recruiter asking me, Diego, how do you feel? And I kind of just sat there in stunned silence, because I was thinking back to my head and thinking back to my visit to the Google office, 2 years prior, and then talking to Yuval, taking the courses, and being unemployed for 4 months. So it was a lot to take in. And even the recruiter said that, Diego, this is very, very rare, because usually you would have to do 2 phone interviews and 2, I think, team video calls to assess you as an applicant. So the fact that you got in with just 1 phone interview without them even looking at your face is kind of crazy. So she was also stunned herself. So of course I took the Facebook job. Sorry, Chicago. And yeah, I started in March, and it's been a crazy ride, and it's been really a crazy journey since last year. I'll never forget, because of COVID, quitting my job at the newspaper, being unemployed, and then quickly getting that Chicago job, and then quickly getting that Facebook job. I think so far I've had people reach out to me on LinkedIn, do you have any advice for the interview process? And I feel bad because I only do 1 interview for that Chicago job and 1 interview for the Facebook job. So I never really went through the hurdles of the full interview process. But I'll take it that way. I prefer 1 interview anyway. So yeah, but once again, my pro tip is to always do research on who's going to interview you. And you never know, an email or a single call can lead to a job within 24 hours. It happened to me twice, believe it or not. So yeah.
Amazing. I love that everything can change in such a short period. So sometimes you lose hope and you think to yourself, nothing is working. I'm applying and applying and applying,
Right.
and it's not working. But then in 24 hours, and you have a project or you have a job, and I think you should be proud of yourself for the fact that it was 1 interview and not 3 or 4. And you shouldn't feel bad about it if people ask, because it means that they saw something. There's a reason they hire you eventually. So you have that. You have that. So don't. Nobody will take it away from you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for sharing your stories today. I see that we have a few questions over here. Before that, I would like to say that if there is anyone in the audience that would like to join to the UX Writing Academy, so this is the link. We offer today a coupon code for the next 48 hours for 15% off. And I want to invite you to join us, especially for the people that attended this panel and took the time to listen to to our past students, this is the coupon code. It says MEBMERS, which is my way to say members, just with different letters, just the B instead of the M. So that's the coupon, MEBMERS, and it's valid for the next 48 hours. You have also, we added the payments option. So you have like 12 payments, 6 payments, or 4 payments, and the coupon code will work on all of them if you're interested in that. So thank you for that. And now we'll take some 10 more minutes, if it's okay with you, for a few questions. All right, so I see. Okay, so are remote UX writing jobs available, or do they tend to be in an office? Is moving to a big city is necessity to get a good job?
All
Is
of
that a
my jobs
question?
have been remote, so I think it just depends on where you end up. Every company is doing things differently, and
Mhm.
I think UX writing is a great job to do remotely. It's really easy to collaborate online with different tools that people were probably already using. And yeah, I think you can do it from anywhere in the world.
Yes, I agree. Lauren, would you like to say something?
Was the question, can you do UX writing remote or
Is there opportunities in like remote? Because of
Yeah.
course you can do it remote.
Yeah. So for me, what's interesting is, so I live in Charlottesville. My wife and I were talking about moving because for me, no jobs as a UX writer exist here, and I wasn't a UX writer at that point yet. So we were just kind of discussing it, and I was saying, I've lived here for 4 years. Like, I can't do it anymore. I was commuting an hour each way to Capital One in Richmond. And so then I took the course at the start of COVID. And that, COVID, as I think I did for a lot of people who don't work in or don't live in like New York, San Francisco, Atlanta, Chicago, kind of opened up the world for me. And yeah, I mean, I applied for and interviewed at so many jobs that are now remote and are considering remote people. And I don't think they would have pre-COVID. So I think that it's definitely a different world in that sense.
Thank you for sharing. And yes, COVID really changed the way that remote is
Right.
perceived. I know that many companies accept remote workers right now, and there's way more remote projects than it used to be. So it's not a necessity to move to a big city necessarily. But I will say that in the bigger cities, you have more opportunities. That's for sure. Like, we can't ignore
Yeah.
that. In California or in New York or in Tel Aviv or in Berlin, you have more opportunities than in cities that are less techies, for example. And it's really important when you look on a job on LinkedIn, for example, you can pick the remote ones. If you go to a job board, also you have remote positions over there. You can check it out. I just added it here in the chat. Yeah, so there is opportunity in remote, not as in living in bigger cities, but it's definitely something that is out there.
Yeah. And I will say that COVID ironically has been beneficial in my experience because I wouldn't have landed that remote Chicago job as a copywriter first without COVID. And then after that, after getting that experience, it really helped me get into Facebook right now in San Francisco. Although I already knew for at least a year or two prior that I wanted to move to San Francisco. I think the timing of COVID kind of just fell into alignment. But I know that working remotely is very, very possible for people who are concerned about that. And in fact, some of my people on my Facebook team work in small towns in Kansas and Mississippi. So you don't necessarily have to work in a giant metropolitan city as well. You can work remotely because of COVID.
I agree. And I see that people are here asking about like, is the courses truly self-paced? I know the website says 15 to 20 hours per week, but is it possible to pause coursework for a week or sometimes only put a few hours work per week? If you have a conflict, so you can answer it. I say that like students sometimes submit their work a bit later and we're pretty flexible with it, but we want to encourage the students to keep in the pace because you don't want to like to have the snowball effect and submit everything late because it will definitely hurt the process of the program, in my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, I think especially because we were like the first COVID class, it was very flexible and things got stretched out a bit. But it's like with any kind of class that you might take as an adult, like the only person who has a stake in your performance really is you, and you're going to get out of it what you put in. So if you want to spend 15 to 20 hours a week working on it, that is, I mean, it also depends on how quickly you work. I'm a pretty fast worker, so I felt like a lot of times I was mystified by how much time other people were saying that they had spent on something. And then other times it would be like, oh, I actually do really need to put more time into this. And this is not something that I can just breeze through. So it kind of depends on what your work style is. I think I probably averaged closer to between 5 and 10 hours a week on most of the projects. But if you want to spend 40 hours a week working on it, you probably are doing way more than you need to, but you could if that's what you wanted to be doing. So it's kind of up to you, but there are deadlines, is what I'll say.
Yeah, exactly. As Sarah put it, you can invest also 1 hour a week in the exercise, but for your own good, I would recommend to invest more. So it will be, you could eventually put it in your portfolio if you're interested, or it will give you enough confidence to move to the real project phase of the program, so you could feel better and more confident towards that part of the program, which is the last month. And I see many people asking like about certificates and what's the differences between the different courses. I know that few of you took several UX writing classes. So what will be the difference between the UX writing academy and other UX writing classes that you took or that you know of?
I think kind of related to the previous question. The other course that I took before the UX Writing Academy was through the UX Writers Collective, and that was more of a self-paced course. So it wasn't really taught in like a weekly basis. It was like a do-it-yourself kind of course. You can take it however long you want. You can invest how many hours a week you want. But unfortunately for me, if I don't have that sort of like weekly structure, I kind of procrastinated with that first course, and I ended up taking a few more months than I should have finishing that little course. And what I loved about Yuval's course was that it was a more of a weekly basis. It was much more structure, and it kind of forces you to really evaluate, how much time and effort can I invest in this course per week. And it kind of sets like a little mini deadline for you to like finish your projects by or finish your tasks by, and it keeps you organized. And so that to the point that was when COVID first hit. We were only impacted very slightly in terms of the course workload, and then it kind of went back to normal, like week by week, here are the assignments and blah blah blah. So I think that really helped, as opposed to a self-paced course where I feel like if COVID were to hit, you may feel more inclined to procrastinate or like kind of put it on the back burner, so to speak. So for me, at least in my experience, it really helped. And you have to really, kind of similar to what Sarah said earlier, you have to really invest in your future, and you're the only one like putting yourself at stake here. This is for your future. So you got to put in the work, no matter how many hours you could do it. And I did it with a with a full-time job as a reporter at the same time, working 40 hours a week. If I can do it, I think a lot of you can do it as well, for sure.
Yeah, I also did the UX Writers Collective course, which I did almost immediately after the UX Writing Hub course. And I will say that the collective course would probably have been better as something to do first, as like an introduction to a lot of the concepts. And there's practice and you get feedback, but it's not really like that one-on-one relationship that you build with a mentor through the UX Writing Hub Academy. And I like after taking like the full academy, that was like, a 4-month thing plus the real project afterwards, like the collective course was kind of like, yeah, okay, I barely, like, I pretty much skimmed the reading because it was like, yeah, we did all of this, and I ended up finishing it within 7 days. So it was like, I think a great supplement, but much less in depth.
All right.
Oh.
Yes, Lauren.
I was just gonna say that I only took the UX Writing Hub course, so I can't speak about the other ones. but yeah, I mean, it was all I needed. So
very cool.
Well, Sarah,
so
now I'm embarrassed because I took 4 months to complete.
Don't be embarrassed,
and you did it in 1 week. Don't look at me.
But you did it before and she did it after, so
yeah, I did it after,
Right,
and
right.
I was kind of doing it like, I didn't really have a huge workload at the time, so it was
Right.
pretty easy to work on it during the day.
Got you.
very cool. So the program right now is structured a bit differently. So we have like the boot camp right now, which is the first 3 months of the program, 27 writing exercises, much more, it's like a bit more structured in a way. And then there is the research module. Then we work on the e-com store, as you remember. And after that, we have the real project module, and a lot of great projects that we have right now for the November cohorts that we're working on right now. And yeah, we invest a lot of efforts to bring our students like a structured program with the best possible real projects. For example, from Reboot and Recovered, I learned a lot because it took them a while to implement your work, and I was extremely frustrated with it. And now when I reach out to those organizations, I'm like, okay, first of all, I have 2 rules. The first rule is that you're going to have one owner in your company that is going to implement our students' work so they can present it in their portfolio. And second of all, they have to present it in their portfolio. So you have to let us present it in their portfolios. We can't have like NDAs and stuff like that. So these are the 2 rules that we have with like those nonprofits or companies that we reach out. So you're safe with that. You're going to have a real project in your portfolio if you're going to join our program. So I'm going to add the link one more time, and also the coupon. I saw that Keisha also joined us, and I remember you for the Writers for a Day workshop. So welcome. It's very exciting to have you. And that's about it for today. Thank you so much, Lauren, Sarah, and Diego. It was amazing to catch up. You gave me lots of like also, materials to think about when it comes to what are the biggest takeaways of the program, because we can look at it as some kind of interviewing you to improve what we're doing. So it was amazing, and thank you for sharing your journey. I feel like many people here got a lot of value out of it. My takeaway is that it's not going to be easy. I know, I'm aware that all of you, like I'm personally aware that all of you worked extremely hard day and night for a lot of time in order to be where you are today. And this is just day 1 for you because you just started. And I want to wish you good luck in your career. And I'm sure you're going to nail it and you're going to be fantastic at what you're doing. I can guarantee that because I know you and I know how professional you are. And I want to thank you for being here today and sharing your journey with all of the people that sign up. And that's about it. Thanks.
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
All right. So thank you everyone for joining us today for this fantastic panel. We're the UX Writing Hub, and we have also the UX Writing Academy program that we've talked about during this panel. I want to encourage you that if you want to take a step and become a UX writer, that might be a good fit for you. And I want to learn about it first, like you joined today. So you're already decided that you're taking an action. So learn about it, talk to more students, talk to more people, chat with me, reach out. Reach out to the people in this panel if you have specific questions about how to get into the field. The program is not mandatory. It's only for specific people that want to get it, but you can get in the job if you're motivated enough. And even if you're not taking the program, I'd love to help because our mission is to help as much as writers in tech as we can. So that's about it. So follow all of the people here on the panel. And I'll see you in our next event or in the UX Writing Academy program or on the Facebook group. And that's about it. Ciao, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.